I'm Christopher Reeve. You know, I was thinking the other day about some of the strange parts that I've played since I started acting as a kid. One time I was the third guard from the left in Cinderella. Another time I played a tree. In Shakespeare's A Winter's Tale, I played a bear, as well as lords, officers, attendants, etc. And usually I was the etc. Another time I was a Nazi. And once I had the privilege of being Katharine Hepburn's only grandson. Well, it was on Broadway anyway. But I think that if somebody had ever told me that one day I would dye my hair black and wear red boots and play a man who flies around and lives by the North Pole, I would have had to say, okay, that could be fun. And it was, playing Superman. You know, since the film opened, a lot of people have written in saying, how did you do it? Well, I don't think we should show you everything. You know, I think we should keep a few secrets. But let's go.
At first, they'd considered him too young and maybe even too skinny, but his mature calm made a continuing impact.
I wore a big, bulky blue sweater because I thought, oh my God, I've got to look stronger, you know, and I knew I was skinny. I'd been sitting around, hadn't been exercising. I mean, I get out and play tennis and stuff, but I don't in any way do body stuff. So I got the biggest Shetland sweater I could find up in my attic and went to this audition with it and sat there sort of trying to look bigger, you know, and everything like that. And it was Ilya Salkind and Dick Donner who were the directors. And all they did, they put a pair of glasses on me and they sort of looked at me and said, you know, it was, and we talked about New York and blah, 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 and nothing in particular. And I left.
He got the part. But the problem remained, he was too slim. A padded uniform was prepared for him. But Christopher Reeve was determined to build up his own physique for real.
The point is that when I started, I was a string bean, and Superman's not a string bean. So already on this diet, I eat 4 times a day. I tell you, I'm on a meat diet, a protein diet, vitamin pills, nothing like steroids or anything like that. But I mean, I get to eat as much of as anything that I want, and it's great, you know. The thing is that on this part particularly, you have to start from the outside and work in. You can do all the interior work you want to do, and it's not going to get you to Superman if you don't have the physical strength to go with it. The thing that happens is that the stronger I get, you know, and I'm still not all that strong, but I'm getting that. The stronger I get, the more it helps my mental attitude towards the part. What sets Superman apart is that he has the wisdom to use his power for good. He has all these powers, but he's got the kind of maturity, or he's got the innocence, really, to look at the world very, very simply. And that's what makes him so different. When he says, I'm here to fight for truth, justice, and the American way, everybody goes, you know, but he's not kidding.
Superman, the fictional character who, along with Sherlock Holmes and Tarzan, rank as the 3 most famous men who never actually existed.
Maniac. Do you really think you could hide it from me by encasing it in lead? Go ahead. So from our base here in England, we went to New York to shoot scenes of Superman as an adult before we went to Canada to shoot scenes of him as a child. Why New York? Well, if you ask me, New York is the 8th wonder of the world. No, it's something special about it that's got the kind of madness and craziness and life that sort of confuse Clark Kent, but at the same time provides the all-time great backdrop for Superman to do his stuff.
Is it true that you can see through anything?
Yes, I can, pretty much. See, I feel I'm leaving her hung up there. But no, hang on, just drip on her face.
Okay. She's stealing the scene from you there. Don't worry about it. Okay, here we go.
I gotta have a little joy. There was one key scene for the whole part for me was the balcony scene with Lois. What I call the balcony scene. It's when he flies in and talks to her on the balcony, sort of about who he is.
Is it true that that you can see through anything?
Yes, I can, pretty much.
And that you are totally impervious to pain?
Well, so far.
What color underwear am I wearing? Oh, I'm sorry, I embarrassed you, didn't I?
Oh, no, not at all, Miss Lane. It's just that this planet must be made of lead.
Yes, so?
Oh, I'm sorry, I should explain. I sort of have a problem seeing through lead.
Oh, that's very interesting. Do you have a first name or anything?
What do you mean, like Ralph or something?
No, I mean like,
Pink.
Huh?
changed the whole sort of tone of that scene. Because I felt that it must be, that the time had come when Superman would be open enough to say that he's there because he really likes her.
K-R-Y. Do you like pink?
I like pink very much, Lois.
Dangers, the latest on the condition of actor Christopher Reeve.
The crowning of a U.S. fighter jet in Bosnia has many Americans asking the same question tonight. Is the United States military a step closer to becoming more directly involved in Bosnia's bloody civil war? The U.S. plane was on routine patrol.
Now says he does have some sensation in his chest that indicates that his spinal cord was not severed in his riding accident. However, the actor does remain paralyzed and on a respirator. His long-term prognosis still is unknown. Sarah James has more on the fall of a superhero.
It's a sport requiring skill, practice, guts, and luck. At this show in Devon, Pennsylvania last night, a Grand Prix competition featuring some of the top American riders, there was a lot of talk and quite a few prayers for Christopher Reeve. Today, it seems as if some of those prayers may be answered.
His spinal cord is damaged, but in continuity. It has not been cut in half.
Dr. John Jane says that Reeve will undergo an operation on Monday to fuse his two upper vertebrae. Reeve was an amateur rider, but even these professionals told us that every ride has a degree of danger. When this horse balked at a jump last night, rider Unjin Moon barely held on. Then, just minutes later, an even worse spill.
I think it comes with the territory, and if you're scared to fall, then you shouldn't do this sport.
Olympic equestrian Michael Matz, who knows Reeve from the riding circuit, knows the ugly side of this beautiful sport. He has broken his jaw, ankle, and collarbone, but says Reeve's fall is every rider's nightmare. You're an Olympic rider, but this could happen even to you?
I do this for a living, and it can happen to any time. It can happen to the best of riders. It's just an accident that happens.
Every year in the U.S., some 10,000 people suffer spinal cord injuries, most the result of traffic accidents and gunshot wounds. Sporting events account for just 15% of paralyzing accidents. But when our superheroes fall, we take notice. There was jockey Julie Crone's horrible tumble at Saratoga 2 years ago. A shattered ankle, gashed elbow, bruised heart. And perhaps the most terrifying sight, the New York Jets' Dennis Bird, paralyzed after this injury in 1992. Remarkably, Bird recovered and is able to walk today. His doctor, Christian Ragnarsson, says the fact that Reeve is regaining sensation is a good sign. Many of us, I think, are tempted to say when we hear of accidents like this, if it happened to me, I think I just wish that I'd been killed.
First, when I started my career, my answer was like everybody else. I'd rather be dead. But knowing the response of virtually all of my patients is that they rather fight.
Ironically, Christopher Reeve led a campaign for riding safety, for protective helmets, but they don't protect the rider's neck. Michael Matt says riders are trained how to fall.
We always try to tell people that if they fall off, never hold on to the horse. If we fall off, try to roll up in a ball and roll away.
But sometimes things happen too fast. And for riders who know him, Christopher Reeve isn't Superman, but a gentleman who has their prayers.
We all have to count our blessings and hope for the best for Christopher, and hope he pulls through this.
His family remains at his bedside. Christopher's brother, Benjamin.
Clearly, this is a difficult time for him and for us, but I can tell you also that it is lighted by moments of grace, and I can tell you that we do remain hopeful.
Reeve's doctor says he hopes to perform surgery on the actor early next week. The operation would stabilize Reeve's upper spine, perhaps allow him eventually to sit upright in bed. It would not, however, restore Reeve's ability to breathe on his own.
Cord research. NBC News World Headquarters in New York. This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. The news that Christopher Reeve had died of heart failure was like hearing of a death in the family. He was that familiar to America, first as a movie star, then as a quadriplegic, and finally as a tireless spirit, an advocate for more research, more hope for the millions who shared his broken condition and daily struggle just to breathe. He died Sunday of cardiac arrest after becoming infected from a pressure wound. That's a common condition in spinal cord cases. We're going to begin tonight with NBC's Bob Falk.
As Superman, he could bend steel with his bare hands. As Christopher Reeve, he died, age 52, from a heart attack during treatment for an infection related to his paralysis.
Say hello to Clark Kent.
26 years ago, he dazzled moviegoers as mild-mannered Clark Kent transformed, fights the never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way. When he wasn't busy, that is, rescuing Lois Lane.
I've got you.
17 years later, May 1995, at an equestrian show in Virginia, he broke America's heart when his horse balked, throwing Reeve and breaking his neck. The man with everything, the avid skier, diver, and pilot, left quadriplegic, able to move only his head.
Some people say that the longer you go, the better it gets, the more you get used to it. I'm actually finding the opposite is true.
He was overwhelmed, admitted in his unflinching memoir, contemplating suicide. Instead, Christopher Reeve decided, quote, "I've got to be a person, not a patient."
Giving up is unacceptable.
Slowly, the comic book hero became a super crusader, a one-man publicity and lobbying machine for spinal cord research.
Who are we if we don't use our best efforts and best available technology to do something?
For him, that also meant directing and acting again. At the 1996 Oscars, he wowed onlookers, just as he did at that year's Democratic National Convention in Chicago.
America does not let its needy citizens fend for themselves.
Christopher Reeve transformed again, action hero into inspiration.
Chris, what do you say? Let's make a date. We'll do this interview again in 10 years. Only then we'll walk down the beach together.
That's absolutely doable. I'll see you there.
Christopher Reeve, who became a real Superman when he could no longer fly. Bob Falk, NBC News, Washington.
We'll have more on Chris Reeve's legacy of encouraging research for a cure for spinal cord injuries a little later here on NBC Nightly News tonight. Presidential candidate John Kerry had a long friendship with Christopher Reeve, which he mentioned in Friday night's debate.
Someday people will walk again.
Reeve's death has unusual political consequences for Kerry's campaign. The two men were friends for 15 years.
Dependent, again, on how research progresses.
Lately, Reeve served as an unofficial advisor on stem cell research.
Chris Reeve is a friend of mine.
And left Kerry a phone message just last weekend after watching Friday's debate.
The excitement in his voice was just really palpable. And he was so thrilled about where the discussion of stem cell research had come to.
Kerry's challenge? How to avoid appearing insensitive while still emphasizing what he believes is one of his strongest issues. One area where Kerry hasn't been accused of flip-flopping.
It was a sad but appropriate way to measure the progress in spinal cord research. Since he was first injured 9 years ago, Reeve and others in similar condition have been driven by a common goal: to walk again. Is that possible? It is a daunting prospect, but the progress so far is astonishing. Here's NBC's Robert Bazell.
Hands on and up.
Allison Kessler is a member of Harvard's rowing team, even though her legs were paralyzed in a skiing accident 3 years ago.
And push.
She and many people with spinal cord injuries greatly admired Christopher Reeve's activism.
He could have easily, after he got hurt, just faded into the shadows.
Allison's father is a scientist studying spinal cord injuries, and he too sees enormous influence from Reeve.
just exerted a remarkably positive force for spinal cord research.
You need my head back a little bit more?
Reeve's injury was the worst possible, close to the neck, a constant threat to his survival. Part of his legacy is that he never gave up.
Let's do 10 more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wise Young of Rutgers was one of his doctors.
Around the 5th year, he called me and he was excited about the fact that he was moving his left index finger. And then he was standing in a swimming pool and he could lift 5-pound weights with his legs.
But more than anything else, Reeve used his celebrity, money, intelligence, and amazing determination to motivate scientists to believe that spinal cord injury could be overcome. Recent experiments at the Miami Project to Cure Paralysis used injections of nerve cells and hormones to make rats with spinal injuries walk again. Scientists say human trials could start soon.
He actually allowed us or encouraged us to use the word cure.
That quest for a cure led Reeve to push for more research with embryonic stem cells.
Our scientists are on the threshold of major breakthroughs.
Whatever leads to a cure, Allison Kessler and many others believe Christopher Reeve will deserve much of the credit.
There you go.
Robert Bazell, NBC News, New York.
That's nightly news for this Monday night. I'm Tom Brokaw. I'll see you back here tomorrow.